Today we look at Psalms 57. Again, like yesterday's Psalms, be merciful unto me, O God. Be merciful unto me, for my soul trusteth in thee. This guy's having 2 bad days in a row. Believe me, we all know what that's like. But the idea is that, I will cry unto the Lord most high, to God most high, unto God that performed all things for me. The idea of giving credit to God, for the things that have happened. He shall send heaven and save me from the reproach of him that would swallow me up. Again, the idea that I've got enemies that are ready to swallow me up. Now, I don't know when in the psalmist's life this is happening. Now, many of these psalms were written to David, and this one is from David, or I should say written from David. Some of them are not written from David. They are a collection of other psalms that are equal in weight of canon with this. So the idea, and again, when we look at the word psalm and song, many of these psalms are like songs. Remember, we learned about the song of Moses that also Miriam sang. This is a song of something that has happened. It isn't just some presumption or somebody else's narrative that we put to song. This song is about what has happened, what God has done for me. So the Psalms are very personal. This isn't a person that's speculating on a maybe or probably, or this happened to my neighbor or a guy I know. This is very personal. I will cry unto the Lord. He will send from heaven. My soul is among the lions, and I lie down among them. They are set on fire, even the sons of men, whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongues are a sharp sword. He's among evil men. He's among evil men who who are wanting to do evil things to him because of his righteousness. So you get the idea that it's, again, a be merciful. The other in 56 was 13 verses. This one's 11. We're repeating the same type of motif, but again, in the Bible, repetition is for meaning and for clarity, for importance. It's not just, we didn't have anything else to do, we'll throw this psalm in. These psalms also meant something to David, and they meant something to the people that read it, and they should mean something to us. Awake up, my glory, awake, psalter and harp. I myself will awaken early, I will praise thee among the peoples, I will sing sing unto thee among the nations. Be thou exalted, O God, above the heavens. Again, O God, this is something that he's lifting up to nations because their God, their creator, is there. And again, we talked earlier about the names of God, how God is more universal in scope of the entire world. Jehovah is more the covenant with just the nation Israel, and then Adonai is a personal God. So we see these motifs again and again. Finishing Leviticus today, 26 is very reminiscent later on. Well, I'd say reminiscence later on. That's an oxymoron. The idea that we will see this come again in several places. One notably is Deuteronomy 30, in which God says, if you obey me, here's the stuff that's going to happen. I'm going to be for you, and everything's going to go well. Not just obeying me in some ethereal sort of way. If I say do your tabernacles this way, if I say keep these feast days, if I say work for 6 days and off for a day, if I say count this many days and have this kind of feast, if I say do this kind of sacrifice this certain way, if you have this problem, here's the solution. If you have this problem, here's the ceremonial cleansing. Here's how the priests need to be. Here's how the people need to be. Here's what civil law should be, both by major crimes and by misdemeanors. And here we have trespass that has to do with just cleanliness and all of this. Obeying all of that. Now, we kind of in Christianity kind of lean towards, well, throw the whole law out. Well, there are many things here that we need to obey, not for righteousness, for salvation, but cleanliness, how we approach people, how we deal with right and wrong. Fortunately, we have police and firemen, we have magistrates, we have, representatives, we have judges, and we should go to our representatives and our authorities for justice. But in many cases, or if you were in some place where you had to figure it out, or you were in a place where you had to help them figure it out, it's a different spin on the ball. So here we are. He's telling them, don't have any idols. Sacrifice, keep the Sabbath holy. When you're threshing, reach out to the vintage, and the vintage shall reach to the sowing time, and you shall have enough. Don't worry that when you see the sowing and reaping happening, it will continue and you will have enough. Sometimes in sowing time, people don't know what they're going to have at reaping. When you've been obedient to God, you can count on the reaping following the sowing. You can count on the method and the design of what he's done will come through. So keep that. And I will give peace in the land, and you will lie down, and none shall make you afraid. How'd you like to live in a place where you were secure because people were afraid of your God? There's another place where it says that, one will chase 100 and 5 will chase 1,000. That kind of thing. That your God is so mighty that one of you is so powerful that they can chase 100. He's going to give peace. And he's going, oh, now here we go. Chase your enemies, and 5 before you, 5 shall fall for 100, and 100 shall put 10,000 to flight. So he's even getting more expressive than I was just a moment ago. I'll have respect unto you, and make you fruitful, and multiply you, and establish my covenant. His covenant is established with the next generation, and the generation after that just keeps on moving. And I will set my tabernacle among you. I will choose to come down from heaven and set my tabernacle among you. The idea that they're tabernacling, if you will, into a booth to remind them, well, God is going to go into a booth, so to speak, so that he might tabernacle with men. That's a beautiful verse. And again, he says, I am the Lord your God, which has brought you out of Egypt. Again, boom, a reminder. I am the Lord your God. A reminder. This is important. Rest of the verse, things get worse. Because he's saying if you don't hearken, you see, there's no neutral on God's calendar. He isn't just for you, ambivalent, against if you do certain things wrong. He is either for or against. Jesus even said you're either gathering or scattering. You're either for or against. And here, we're seeing that it's either for or against. And so what happens is that if you despise my statute, again, despise the idea that we have this idea that, later on we'll see in Samuel, where Hannah recognizes that she is with the God. If I honor those that honor me, and those that despise me, I lightly esteem. To despise is to not do what he says, to not follow it through, to not follow the pattern, to not follow the design. And even though we are free because of Christ from the penalty of the law, we still need to look at the design of things, the design of the law, the design of our social makeup, the design of our spirituality, the design of our worship. We need to check our design and make sure our designs are fitting. People get all upset about, well, you're all for don't murder and don't kill, but you don't care about Sabbath. Well, Christ revealed himself as the Sabbath. And so that's how that works, that he is the Sabbath of God. And we are the ones to, not worry about Sabbath, but we keep the values of God. Again, going about the fact that we keep the values of God. We represent those. And we're not going to face the disobedience here, but they will and did face national disobedience. They had national disobedience, and they were cast away except for a remnant. So what he says here is coming true based on the people's choice. He says, I'll set my face against you, and you will be slain before your enemies. And I will not yet for all this hearken unto thee, until I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. He's going to punish you 7 times more. He's going to add to it. You knew not to do it. This isn't a matter of not knowing, of ignorance. You willfully did the things. And when we see that in the future with the kings of Israel, we'll see it's a willful disobedience of the law of God. It isn't an accidental or, subjective. It is objective. We will do the opposite. We're doing what we want to do in the way the other nations are doing it. And your strength shall be spent in vain, and your land will not yield your increase. He was talking, remember earlier in 26, how that you'll just put into the land and you'll reap. You'll sow, and here will come the reaping. That don't worry, everything will follow that pattern. Well, the pattern gets broken here. You don't know if you're going to reap. You don't know what's going to happen. You walk contrary, and if you walk is a choice. There's so much choice terminology in this book. And even in the other books, you'll look at Deuteronomy has choice terminology. Isaiah, Jeremiah is filled with choice terminology of people choosing to walk contrary and not hearken. You have not hearkened unto me. I'm calling. He doesn't just spank you the first time. He'll warn you. You need to hearken. He'll send. You need to obey. But one time there will be enough. And if you will not be reformed by me by these things, but will walk contrary, then I will walk contrary with you. Now things get terrible. This is an inkling of the book of Revelation at the very end, when God turns against his own creation. because of the sins of the people. And he has very stark, and I will bring the sword. The sword isn't happening by accident. I will avenge the quarrel of my covenant. Again, the idea of the covenant has been broken. And when you gather in your cities, I will send pestilence, and you will be delivered at the hand of your enemies. And he keeps on talking about how women will make bread, and there just isn't enough to eat. And if you will not at all hearken to me, but walk contrary, then I will walk contrary to you in fury. Now he's going to ratchet it up. He's turning the heat up. I'm walking contrary to you in fury. And he does this. Then he talks about you'll eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters, which many people believe happened in the fall of Babylon, and later on when Israel fell, at the fall of Israel to Babylon, and later on when Israel fell to the Romans, that this happened. And your cities will make waste. And I will bring the land into desolation. Desolation means no active human life there. Maybe the owls and the mules and the birds and the animals are going back and forth, but there's no human activity. And the land will enjoy its Sabbaths. And I will send faintness in your hearts. You'll be afraid of your enemies. And you will perish among the heathen. And I'm just not hitting everything. But in 40, he goes, if you will confess your sins and the sins of your fathers. We have to also admit there's national sins that I am, here they have to admit that they were not just sinners, but that the fathers had sinned by turning away from God. We do not have to do that for our salvation's sake. Although for sanctification, you probably want to unhitch yourself from generational sins. Even though my fathers were sinners and my grandfathers were sinners, I want to unhitch from them. Grandmothers were sinners, mothers. I want to stand before you complete and alone in worship. He will, and this is talking to the nation, remember his covenant with Jacob and renew that covenant. And after the land has enjoyed its Sabbaths and desolate, he was going to bring back. I will not cast away Israel, neither will I abhor them or utterly destroy them. Again, the word of utter destruction. The idea of utter destruction, like we saw with the Amalekites, is to wipe them out like a plate. They're as if off a plate. They're gone. He is not wiping out Israel down to the last man, but he will remember the covenant of their ancestors, whom he brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the heathen, that I might be their God. And then he goes, I am the Lord, stamping it. That's always a stamp. And these are the statutes. So he finishes off that statute. Finishes it off. This is a capstone verse. He's given you everything now. He talked about the priest and how you do this and how you do that and what kind of laws have this and if they break, they do that. And if they do this, that. And if they have trespasses, you do this. Here's the type of offerings, etc. The last chapter is about, and it's kind of hard to really understand from our Western point of view, selling to the Lord. The idea that you could go to the Lord and make vows. Now, I don't think people could do this to make a living. But if someone was wanting to worship God and came across it, I want to dedicate to do X, or I want to make a vow that I'll do Y, or I want to dedicate my child to Yahweh, I'm going to dedicate this field, or I dedicate this house to be a house dedicated to the teaching of the Torah, the teaching of the ways of God. However, whatever that vow is that a man or woman makes, a singular vow, vows are very important. I think sometimes we Christians throw just everything to the wind, and on Sundays and Wednesday nights, or when we have revival or something, we just let our tongues go, and God remembers vows. I've had to go and pray, forgive me of vain vows. Later on, the psalmist talks about presumptuous sins. We do make presumptuous sins. If we're going to say we're going to do something for God, even though there's no penalty, there's no sin, there's no losing your salvation, it's dishonorable. It's dishonorable to shoot off your mouth and say you're going to do something and not follow through. Later on, the scripture is in James, says yes is yes and no is no. Anything else is sin. It's missing the mark. But he talks about esteeming. He talks about money that you could make for making this vow. And again, workman's worthy of his hire. I don't know if this is also where they could, vow that I'll help clean up this area, or vow that I'll help over here with this, or I'll vow that I'll go help this Levi with something in their property, or I vow that I will go, whatever these vows are that they're going to do could be any number of things that you're going to vow that's directly related to the temple or some minor maintenances. Maybe somebody had to clean around the courtyard, you know. Maybe someone would need to go help a Levite who was in trouble, but he needed to go do something needed to be done on his property, but he had to go in and officiate. You know, different things that you can do to help. I'm speculating here. They don't really get into what that vow means. So it could be any number of things. Or not to shoot off your mouth. And money will be given. And you can make 20 shekels. And this might help people who are poor. That you need a little extra cash. You could go make a vow. But you also get the idea that some of these vows are considered eternal when you get to the end of the chapter. Again, using grid work, evidentiary, this is one of those that we're not told a lot. If I really cared to look into this, I would see how the Jews did it and do some research along that line about their traditional understandings, which might glean a little bit more light. But that's not what this, the study is not about gleaning light on it from that point of view. If you're interested in understanding more about what this is, then do your own study. Go check out with some Jewish websites or Jewish, you know, sources to see what the selling to the Lord would be. But he's stating if you do it, keep your vow, you will get some money for it, different money for different people. You can even have where people will, you get the idea that some of these are perpetual for the rest of your life. You're dedicating it says a 1 month old to 5 years old. You know, you'll get shekels, an estimation. So this is, you know, you're selling to the Lord. If you're poor, he may present himself before the Lord, and the priest will value him according to his ability, and that vows that the priest shall make. And if a beast thereof is brought to an offering, then you shall offer this thing, you'll not alter it. And if a man sanctify his house to be holy, then the priest shall estimate it, whether it's good or bad, the priest shall esteem it, and it shall be so. And he that sanctified it will redeem the house, he will have to add a fifth part of the money. So you can redeem it and bring it back, but you will owe parts of, you will have to pay back. So if you made a vow and you needed to get that back, you will have to pay another fifth part. Again, these laws go through. He talks about here that if you devote something to the Lord, it does not belong to you. And so, notwithstanding no devoted thing that a man will devote unto the Lord, hath both of man and beast and of possession and property, that which is devoted to the Lord is considered holy. So, even if you're devout, if you're doing something and vowing to the Lord, the property or the land or the house or the child, they are considered holy. While that vow stands, that child is considered holy unto the Lord. That property is considered holy unto the Lord. And, you know, the vow of what you're doing is holy work unto the Lord. So, again, when we end this book, it says, these are the commandments which the Lord commanded Moses and the children in Mount Sinai. This also concerns tithing. They were supposed to tithe. You couldn't make vows on your tithe. You couldn't double down and do a vow and a tithe. That's the same thing. The tithes were different. They were responsible. You were responsible for bringing the firstborn. You're responsible for bringing the firstborn of your lamb or firstborn of your cattle. So if you're making vows from anything else, then that's different. So he's being very clear here. Like I said, it's one of those that you kind of have to dig a little bit, scratch a little bit. But everything God says is important. Every reason he has it for important. Maybe, speculating here, the other gods around them would let them sell themselves to those gods. You know, and you could make vows to those gods and do things in worship to those gods. Maybe heinous things or all kinds of profane things. But people were doing that as a worship to those gods. Well, maybe, and I'm speculating a little bit, that if you're going to approach God that way, to make vows, watch what you say, here's what you get, here's what's going on. If you want it back, you have to redeem it. But one thing I'll have to say is we really, as Christians, we need to let our yes be yes and our no be no. Just watch what you're saying before God and watch what you're saying to one another. If we make vows, we need to be a people of keeping our word because we have a God who keeps his word. And that's why we're studying his word, because he is a God who keeps his word. Thank you.